The Office of the Parliament celebrates International Women's Day 2022. Gender equality today for a sustainable tomorrow.
And we talk about gender equality, yeah? I mean, I understand the value of gender equity. Let's say, for instance, you're under 5 foot, we have a 5 foot wall. I'm over 5 foot. I mean, I don't need to stand on a box to see over, but you may need to stand on a box. So it's equitable to give you a box to stand over while I may not need any. So I'm very passionate when it comes to gender equity, and I believe everyone deserves it. Men, women, it shouldn't be based on, as I say, equity for everyone. It shouldn't be based just on gender. It shouldn't be based on your socioeconomic standing. It shouldn't be based on race. And I'm, for one, definitely support gender equity. Definitely support equity in all forms. Not gender equity alone, but being equitable in every form. I think men do support gender equality or equity, however we decide to coin it. I have seen men support women in a number of events. Men are more aware of International Women's Day than they are of International Men's Day. Men, I mean, if you see it in any space, men are always supportive of instances. If a woman may go missing, you'd see men come out to support. Look at our the election of our leaders. We're talking about the first female prime minister. Men would have had to vote for that first female prime minister. Men have been supportive. We are a nation that we're one of the few that has a female president right now. And I think men have been supportive. And I think men, is there room for improvement in everything? Yes, there is. But I would say by the wider consensus, men have, particularly in Trinidad and Tobago, men have supported women, as I said, particularly whether it's politically, whether it's in the space. I would have grown in a generation where the young ladies, I mean, they had the opportunity that I had. So I can only speak from my experience. They had the opportunity to an education. They have the opportunity to drive. They had the opportunity, every opportunity that I've been awarded as a young man. I've seen my half-sister, I've seen my nieces, I've seen all my family members, whether they be male or female, have those same opportunities. So I understand generally or globally, we speak a lot about gender inequity, but I think particularly in our society, because I can only speak about Trinidad and Tobago, that's where I live, we as men have supported women. And I always try to encourage advocates along a particular line of advocacy. It's because we found a separative, a divisive mode of advocating that I think though we are trying to solve these so-called gender inequities, we're actually making it worse. We're widening the gap. We're now taking people, instead of looking at a life as a life as a life, we see the gender wars between men and women now. So you see, all right, a woman making a man now. So instead of somebody having empathy in that regard, we say, all right, well, we're balancing the scales. The general social commentary you would see, whether it be on social media, they say, well, all right, that's just one man. So I am seeing the advocacy, because the advocacy sometimes, I don't even want to use the word passionate, because I think sometimes there's a level of trauma attached to it of what would have happened in times gone by and the years gone by historically, and we've learned of all these ideas of patriarchy and so forth. And because some people have been negatively impacted, whether it's been abuse, whether it's been all these other things, I think the advocacy sometimes, instead of mending, it's setting a greater gap between men and women. And I think, to me, to really get that, to eliminate that bias of all type, gender bias, whether it be racial bias, whether it be socioeconomic standing bias, we need to go back to the root of things and start looking at a life as a life. Gender-based violence is always something I've considered. And you see, I give a lot of thought to things before I say it. I mean, I understand we have a lot of subsets of violence. We call gender-based violence, we call intimate partner violence, and a lot of them subsetting into each other, actually. And I know gender-based violence, they say it may be a form of violence that you're more prone to based on your gender. And I mean, to some degree, I agree with that. But to me, generally, I don't think I've ever seen any form of violence that both genders haven't suffered from or haven't perpetrated against another. And whereas I understand the term gender-based violence, I wonder if, as again, the same way we try to separate, if that is the best way to find the solution. I'll show you an example, and it's something that I myself had to learn with my advocacy as well. I can say, if I wanted to make a gender-based violence point as the president of the Single Fathers Association, that men suffer emotional violence or greater gender-based violence emotionally by women who have custody and forbid them from being a part of their children's life. But I think we at our organization have grown beyond that. We've seen that it isn't a gender causing that issue of that bias. It is a power dynamic causing that. It is the fact that one party is a custodial parent and the other party is a non-custodial parent, and one party is seen as a victor and the other party is seen as a loser. And because of this type of thinking, they don't understand the value and significance. The custodial parent does not appreciate the value of the non-custodial parent. Because I have seen, though, based on men's gender, they are the ones that suffer this the most. I have seen women suffer it too. I have seen men with custody forbid women who doesn't have custody to see their children. So that whole, to me sometimes, and I think it's all about the advocacy again, when it comes to gender-based violence, I understand what it's supposed to mean, but as I say, I can see the men on the ground, people on the ground being confused sometimes by some of these terms, the way we coin them and the way we try to explain them. So I think maybe there is need for better explanation of the term gender-based violence, and I think you'll see a wider appreciation by, I mean, not only men, but I mean, the entire society, because I think even some women are confused by some of the terms. I mean, is gender-based violence specifically different? Or I believe intimate partner violence will be a subset of gender-based violence, which may be a subset of domestic violence, so you can understand the confusion on the ground. And I mean, most of my work is on the ground. So it makes no sense as professionals or as advocates or the ones who know the theory, for us to understand these terms and not be able to translate it to the ground. So social media, because, I mean, you're not properly sensitized and on the ground, as I said, is confused, that's where social media content comes from. People on the ground who not experienced, who not aware what they're going through, just commenting on the way they feel. Some of them who may have been traumatized or currently going through trauma, not having an outlet to speak, they go to social media to speak. They go to social media to vent, because whether it's on a Facebook profile or wherever, that's the only avenue or place they get to vent. That's the only place that they get to vent, and you're going to see a lot of venting there. I mean, just additionally from men, because a lot of men may not have that outlet or that space or be allowed to speak in certain ways. So they keep a lot inside or have a fake profile, go on Facebook and say something that they really wanted to say. There's always room for improvement, but I want women to know that men, we support and love women. And it's time for us, I believe, as men and women, to find that place where we could come together. Time for the advocacy to be more of a collaborative type of advocacy, opposed to a separative, a divisive kind of advocacy. And that's the reality. That's the only way. We are here together, men and women. We need to understand each other. We need to see our strengths. We need to see our weaknesses. And we have to both admit when we have made mistakes. And I think that's it. I think there's a whole reconciliation that's required between men and women, so that, one, women can see that men actually support them. And two, the remnant of those men who don't support them will feel comfortable that they can support women.
The Office of the Parliament celebrates International Women's Day 2022. Gender equality today for a sustainable tomorrow.